What's up, family? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to have a very interesting conversation, and this one may not take too long. My notes are only 3 pages long, so these are the shortest notes. And again, they're not very structured, so that may have an impact as well. But I want to talk about, since we've talked about this health and healing incident, or health and not healing incident that Bishop Jakes endured lately, which I've done 2 videos on that, and I'm not going to do any more on that subject. But since I've talked about that subject, I kind of want to talk about how superstition impedes, for lack of better words, true healing or true health and wholeness. And I want to talk about the danger of misunderstanding wellness. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. So if you haven't already, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining, connecting, or supporting this community channel or content in any way that makes sense for you. Make sure to share this video with somebody, anybody, everybody. And then last but not least, check out the products, man. We have merch and we have books, and you can find them. Yeah, the merch on the community page on YouTube, or actually, I think it's just the merch page on YouTube. And then you can also go to windowshop.dldd.us. That's window with a Y. And of course, for our books, you can go to Amazon. All right, so are y'all ready to jump into this conversation? Now, I'm going to warn you, in the beginning, it's going to be structured, and then in the middle, it's just going to be scratch notes, and then at the end, it's going to be structured. You ready for this? All right, so in many religious communities, practices like healing and deliverance are central to the faith experience. However, these practices can sometimes lead individuals to misconstrue what it truly means to be well. When wellness is attached to emotions or events rather than a clear understanding of cause and effect, people may end up pretending to be well because they are confused about the essence of genuine health. This misunderstanding not only hampers personal growth, but also makes individuals susceptible to manipulation and harm. What I've noticed, for the by far and large, just in my experiences, and again, I do give the caveat that my context is definitely from the more charismatic branches of churches. But what I've noticed is that in many cases, it breeds people who pretend to be well because they actually don't know what it means to be well. So if someone's standard of being well is attached to an emotion and an event instead of cause and effect, then their feelings will become the predominant motivator for identifying causal phenomenon. For example, someone will say, Pastor prayed for me and I just cried so much. I know I'm healed. This is a common refrain. Okay. While emotional release can indeed be therapeutic, it doesn't equate to physical or psychological healing. This over reliance on feelings and the event over facts prevents individuals from seeking necessary medical attention or understanding the real factors affecting their health. I almost named this conversation Fuck Your Feelings, you know, because sometimes, you kind of, in order to be skeptical, you do got to be like, man, fuck your feelings. Think about this shit, you know? But being separated from a causal understanding of outcomes makes people more susceptible to scams, schemes, and all other types of superstitions. Detaching from a causal understanding makes people more vulnerable to misinformation and exploitation. Without knowledge of biology or the complexities of health, it's easy for individuals to be misled by those who claim expertise or experience without a proper understanding. That's the dangerous slippery slope that superstition breeds. It breeds pseudo professionalism and pseudo intellectualism because it damn near demands a refusal to get an understanding in deference to the presumption. The thing that I've already presumed to be true is the thing that I've already presumed to be true without evidence of being true is the thing that I hold as prime or paramount, and I refuse to acknowledge anything that challenges that. That's going to create pseudo professionalism, because then here's a person that is basically saying, I know what I know because someone else told me it's true. That's at the end of the day, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with any type of religious presuppositions. The evidence at the end of the day, the quiet part out loud is I believe it just because I believe it. I believe it because the person I trusted told me it was true. And I don't have the personal awareness to be able to articulate that, you know? And most people don't. It's not me beating up on those people. Most people don't. If you would have asked me while I was like knee deep in it, Darante, like, why are you a believer? I wouldn't have talked about social, cultural implications. I wouldn't have talked about, growing up in the United States of America, which is a country that has a lot of Christian propaganda in its movies and its films and it's in the way that it presents citizenship. I wouldn't have said any of that. I would have said because he's my Lord and Savior, because he saved my life, because he woke me up, clothed in my right mind, started me on my way. I would have said a whole bunch of stuff that I had heard other people say. None of those things had I experienced. You know, that's one of my shortcuts, and it's not a reliable one. And shortcuts often aren't. But that's one of my shortcuts is when people are kind of talking. When I start hearing people say the exact same things, that's like, oh yeah, this didn't really happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, imagine being an adult, and hearing the phrase, it's raining cats and dogs for the first time. Like, just like, what? Right. That's never heard that before, you know? And maybe perhaps you'll for a moment think that maybe it is raining cats and dogs. But the more people you hear saying it, it doesn't actually give credence to the possibility of it actually raining cats and dogs. It more likely becomes, oh, this is just a saying, just some social moniker, some colloquial, however, designation. You know, that's like, so people say, he woke me up this morning, clothed in my right mind, started me on my way. That's just shit people say. And the more people say it, the more you realize that it's just shit people say. Nobody's actually having that experience. I don't know how we got on that rabbit trail, but see, that's what happens when we get into the scratch notes. But the big point is, it requires this type of environment requires a refusal to get an understanding and deference to the presumption. So if I already presume that this is it, that God is doing it this way, and then I'm only gonna, there's those biases. I'm going to lean into information that supports that and try to get as far away from information that doesn't support that. But the problem is then I'm not actually getting good information. I'm not getting information. Like even now when people reach out to me for advice, and like, here's the thing, and this one I'm really sitting with, because it's hard for me to understand this one. Actually, it's difficult, but I see that some people are being sincere, and so I'm trying to treat it sincere. But there are people who are in a place in who are like on the edges of deconverting, but it seems like they haven't fully deconstructed yet, right? And what I mean is, there are people who still believe, like I had one that still believes that, like, this person was like, well, I'm afraid to not believe because there's so much stuff that's happening today that the Bible said will be happening. See, and that person may be sincere, But what I do know about them when they say something like that is that they've never been a sincere believer. You may be sincere about what you're saying now, but you've never been sincere about your faith if you actually think that the Bible is describing anything that's happening today. You've never read the book. You've never read the book from cover to cover if that's what you think, you know. But then there are others with those with similar type of issues. You know, I'm afraid to deconvert because I have, you know, relatives who've had experiences with ghosts and demons. And I'm like, well, number one of these things is not like the other. You know, if you're talking about demons, I'm assuming you're talking about the Christian context, then there are no ghosts. You know what I'm saying? And so at that moment, you just have a hodgepodge of superstitions you've not actually deconstructed. So typically, the advice that I give those people is that you need to you need to do some critical thinking coursework. And the thing is, what I've started leaning into telling them is, when I say do some critical thinking coursework, don't worry about proving or disproving yourself on this yet. Leave that shit alone. You know, don't leapfrog into that because it's always some leapfrogging bullshit. At the end of the day, it's like ghost, you know, and it's always like a what if, and I'm like, the fact that you're saying what if means you have no evidence, so you have no reason. You know, like this is topsy-turvy, but there are people who are struggling with these type of things for real. And I am sitting with that and trying to figure out a way to have well, I don't want to say have conversations because I'm going to be honest with you, my personality type doesn't work well in those type of conversations. It's only going to go so far because it's going to be hard for me to stop making faces. And you believe in what? No. And then I'm gonna say stuff that's gonna come off condescending, you know, a lot because a lot of the anecdotes I'm gonna use while trying to talk to you are gonna come off like I'm talking to a younger person or a child, because y'all know, y'all know, and so. But I am working on trying to figure out what type of resources we can possibly create, what type of conversations need to be stimulated and platformed to help people who are struggling with those type of issues, because we're all different, right? And so those are just not issues I struggle with. I realized when I deconverted how many people still struggle with the fear of hell. I didn't have a fear of hell when I was a pastor, you know. So I damn sure wasn't gonna have a fear of hell when I stopped being a pastor. You know, I seen too much to have a fear of hell. You know, and when I say I saw too much, I didn't know anybody who was actually afraid of hell. I'm just now meeting people who are afraid of hell, and that is blowing my mind. My whole time I was a believer, wasn't nobody really afraid of going to hell. If you've seen some of the things I've seen happen on church campuses, trust me, baby, wasn't nobody afraid of hell. And if they were, you know, like hell, no, they just weren't afraid. They were going there with gasoline draws on, proudly pouring the gasoline themselves. Like, no, no. So I was actually shocked. Um, which I'm always learning not to really be shocked because that's the thing. None of us are actually a real adequate reflection of all of us. And so even now, like I get on the others, I get on to myself right here. I get on to others about being shocked when other people are different. You know, like, no, they're different. Like, why would they not be different? Like, why would you meet somebody you've never met before and then be shocked that they just so happen to think differently than you? Like, what the fuck? But that's how insidious superstition is. You superstitiously think the only way to be human is the way that you are human. And, you know, that's how you get supremacy. That's how you get nationalism. That's how you get tribalism. That's how you get racism. That's how you get sexism. Anytime somebody gets to hold their way as the standard, holiness. I think as I mentioned in one of my recent videos that I think I'm starting to realize that holiness, the standard of holiness was be like me or die. It was meet my standard or die. That was God's standard of holiness. Meet my standard or die. God is so holy that if anybody sees his presence, they gotta die because they don't meet his standard. Nothing that doesn't meet my standard can be in my presence. Now, if this was a motivational coaching moment, boy, I'd take that and flip that. Like Bro, that okay, okay. I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm back. All right. So big point is back to the scratch notes. Big point here is it's easy to convince people who don't understand the complexities of biology without knowing what you're talking about because they don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's the thing that people overlook. That's the problem. That's how this stuff gets cultivated, gets inculcated, gets isolated, gets insulated, get infiltrated, gets saturated, I'm trying to think of the one with milk. No, that's pasteurized. That's not gonna work. Or is that cheese? It might be both. But either way. Oh, I almost had the word. Evaporated. That's what it was. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Just got on a loop. Got on a loop. But no, like so if that's the insidiousness of that because there and I want to be careful. There are people who are absolutely fucking scamming you on purpose. You know what I'm saying? I've only come across a small handful of those because I've never fucked with folk like that. You know, my scars from childhood and poverty just it don't let me work well with people like that. But there are also people who are victims of their own presumptions. There are also people who think, well, imposter syndrome. See, I thought I was going to say something that was going to sound bad. Because what I was going to say is there are people who think they are smarter than they really are. You know what I'm saying? So they think when they're announcing some of these things from the pulpit and when they're declaring these things, they're getting these things as revelation. And to them, in their worldview, revelation has become a valid way of knowing. Not only has revelation become a valid way of knowing in their worldview, but revelation is a superior way of knowing. And just for those of you who don't know what revelation is, it's making shit the fuck up. But they don't know that. They think on the other side of the made up is God who's sending stuff from the made up to their mind and revealing them. And that's why they believe that revelation is a more superior or is a superior form of knowing, way of knowing. And the travesty of that bullshit is they've never compared it to actual ways of knowing because they've been separated from ways of knowing based off of their presumption of the answer they have is already correct. Therefore, there is no need for me to interrogate the validity or the efficacy or the veracity of the scientific method. Most of them do not know the scientific method. Most Americans believe that the scientific method only has utility in a laboratory. You know, most Americans believed that writing essays only had utility in school. Why are we doing this? Oh, wow. Okay. I've learned that this is why so many people do not know how to communicate. This is why so many people don't know how to articulate. You weren't paying attention in those literature classes, in those grammar classes, you know, in those composition classes. Either that, well, a lot of teachers sucked. I can't say. I was gonna say either that or your teacher sucked, and that happens too. That happens too. But no, we learn how to use these things to learn how to validate our ways of knowing, learn how to strengthen our ways of communicating what we know, so that we can share information. You know, I think the very fatal thing that we often forget about education is the whole point of education is to share information before we die. Just pass information on to the next folk. We should do a better job of passing on good information, you know, because we do need to find ways to shield our species against rising pseudo professionalism and pseudo intelligence. You know, at the end of the day, it's not the superstition that's going to take us to idiocracy. It's what that stuff allows to be cultivated in a sense. I don't want to use cultivated because that's a good word, but it's still the same thing. What those things allow to germinate, and spread. If the more people, democracy becomes the most dangerous when education declines, because then it's easier and easier to manipulate the masses. Okay, that's going to be a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's confidence ends up being placed in unverified claims rather than evidence-based knowledge, because evidence itself becomes inconvenient. So you imagine when someone says they've had some type of experience, or that, God intervened in some type of way. And when you start asking them for the evidence of that intervention, their evidence doesn't go beyond their feelings, what they felt about it, what they experienced. If you ask them to, okay, did you do anything to interrogate the validity of this, i.e. scientific method type of stuff? Did you do anything like that? Well, no. Why would I do that? Because that's inconvenient, and I think that's what we need to remember. Like, that's the superstition thrives in mental lethargy. It thrives in places in our minds where we don't want to do the work. That's where superstition gets to thrive and spread and succeed, because that's the whole point. Having a presumption that you defer to, anytime the idea, concept, whatever comes up, nope, I already got a presumed answer there. That's what's there. Nothing else but that. Evidence becomes inconvenient. That's gonna require me to actually have to do some work. No, I saw a ghost. I feel like it's a ghost. That's a ghost. But that's not a valid way of knowing. But it even goes beyond that, though. Like, I saw a ghost. I felt like it was a ghost. There is a God. And it's like, whoa, there are so many jumps you made in that. This shit don't, like, whoa, let's unpack all of this. It's easy to convince people that they're having a supernatural experience when they don't have an understanding of the nuances of neuroscience. There becomes a false confidence in claiming to know and understand things that an individual actually has not put any legitimate work into understanding or knowing. Which I've talked about this a little bit when talking about people who claim that they know about aliens and stuff like that. And I'm like, but you don't even own a telescope. You've not actually put in any work into actually trying to know. You've just been mentally masturbating over YouTube videos and articles that you found. And none of that stuff is actually academic research. It's all personal anecdotes. A person saying, oh, I know this to be true. And because you want it to be true and you like to be titillated by that type of shit, you're like, oh, yes. It's your circus. You know what I'm saying? It's your distraction. And it's just me kind of bleeding out. That's one thing I always tell people. You got to be careful with your own life. And it's just about personal growth and development on this one. You got to be careful with the things you're focusing your energy on. Like, is this a distraction or is this directional? Is this actually trying to take you somewhere you're trying to go? Like, are you trying to go to space? Like, if there are aliens out there that are somehow secretly doing something in the government and need to be stopped, are you trying to lead that war? You know what I'm saying? Like, what role in this are you trying to play other than to be the person with the tinfoil hat on with the cardboard box that says, I was right? Like, that there actually are no awards for that. There, none. Not with shit like that. No, no. If you're right, we're all dead, and you didn't do anything about it but watch YouTube videos. You ain't out there building an alien killer or nothing. You're fucking useless. You know what I'm saying? In that regard, when in the alien war, you being the person who knew what another YouTuber said that they heard another YouTuber said that they heard what another YouTuber said, you're fucking useless. Like, no, like in a world of information, social media, technology, computers, AI, we really don't need you to be the messenger. You know what I'm saying? But we do need people being the workers. Want to be one of the workers. Be one of the people working on the alien revolution or alien rebellion. The big point is people connect themselves to knowing things that they haven't even tried to know. I had a friend one time was telling me and was lamenting about how we need to leave space alone because we ain't even studied the ocean. And the first thing I was like, well, who the fuck is we? Because I ain't seen you in space or in the ocean. Dude, you don't even go to the beach. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, do you see those leapfrogging concerns? You don't care about either. What you care about is having an opinion about what somebody else is doing, so you can feel better about your mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop that shit. And the truth of the matter is, like, whoa, bro, we have people who study the ocean. All types of people. You cannot judge the world by your ignorance. But that's what superstition does. It causes you to defer to the presumption, to the ignorance. So people have these false claims and not really be putting any legitimate work into understanding or knowing how things work. So someone will say, I know how the body works because the Bible tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that we are made in his image, formed in his likeness. Therefore, since I have a relationship with the maker, through his scripture, his word, that's all I need to know. And this is something that people really say. This is something people literally say. Or they say, no, I know how the body works because insert any testimonial. And why would I need to know anything else? I know who my God is. It ain't about knowing who you are. It's about knowing whose you are. I know the maker. I know the potter in the sky with the pieces of the pie, who is always getting high. And no, that's not a lie. See, I love it. Oh shit, that's too fun. Okay, we need a whole cast and crew for these. Damn, that's good. Okay, so there's both a claim of knowledge and an admission of willful ignorance. That's all I need to know. Why would I need to know anything else? I don't need anything else. I don't need nobody else long as I got King Jesus. Long as I, and by the way, that's not biblical either. I don't know where did people get that shit from. But anyway, these types of claims only hold weight in the minds of individuals and groups that have been strategically separated from paying attention to the principles of cause and effect. That's why even in the US, there are droves of adults who still believe that their imaginary friend is responsible for the rain. That their imaginary friend sends the rain from the made up. And if he doesn't send the rain from the made up, there's no rain. There are adults in the United States of America that believes that. Now, please understand, that's not a requirement of Christianity. It's not a requirement of Christianity that you believe God is sending the rain. You can believe that God is behind the rain. You can believe that God is attached to the rain, but there's no requirement for you to believe that God is making it rain. God up there making it rain. Oh, now that'd be a different type of heaven. That'd be a heaven I'd be interested in checking out. I probably wouldn't stay long, but I'd be interested in checking it out. If God is up there making it rain, I'd take a few pictures. I'm gonna need this for the scrapbook. Which also reminds me of a scene in Idiocracy, one of the opening scenes. All right. But this happens because these people remain separated from the causal relationship implied by the water cycle, you know, which is something that is clearly understood, something that it's not a secret, it's not a mystery, it's not locked away in some secret chamber of secrets, it's basic information, you know. But just because information is available doesn't mean information is received. And that's what I'm highlighting in this video. Superstition causes people to defer to their presumed shortcuts. So even when the information that they need is right in front of them, they will ignore it. That's why a lot of times, now some things are accurate, but a lot of times when people say this wasn't in our books, a lot of times that's inaccurate. It was there. You just didn't care. But sometimes we don't have that awareness about ourselves. And I've been watching that since I was a child. Like, people seem to be really disconnected from their behaviors and how they're actually living their lives, because I've heard people say, things like, I'm trying my best. And I'm like, but I was there with you. I know you didn't. I remember when you was like, fuck that shit, I ain't doing all that. But like now you're sitting here like, no, I was trying my best, man. I was giving it all. And it's like, you don't realize you're just saying words because you think these are the words you're supposed to say. You're not actually critically engaging what you're really doing. Man, I did everything I could and Miss Johnson still gave me a D. Bruh, you talk to Keisha every day. I watch that shit. Like, what you talking about? Okay, so, but that's what happens when you separate people from cause and effect, and then just kind of tying back into yesterday's conversation, our mismanagement of approaches to discipline also further causes issues here, because then discipline in many American contexts becomes about punishment. Let me show you why you aggravated me. Let me show you what happens when you aggravate people. Instead of being about goal alignment, helping people, it's not like, what do you want to be able to get out of life, get from life? You know what I'm saying? And what behaviors do we need to identify to help you get those things out of life? That's what discipline is. Discipline is about direction, it's about goals. But when you separate people from cause and effect, because what's the cause and effect that we're teaching through punishment? If you make me mad, I'll hurt you. You know what I'm saying? This is why this is the real reason it's not effective. Like, that's the underlying reason. Like, even if it wasn't physical, it still wouldn't be effective because it's the directional is counterproductive. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so, but the causes of things that are currently well understood are presumed to often exist as potentially God, the devil, or some other spiritual phenomena to believers. And again, that goes back to like whether we're talking about weather events or even talking about things that are happening in our bodies. So an example is, often you'd hear, especially in the more charismatic churches, somebody say, well, I've been feeling sick this week. Now, I was feeling fine last week and I know I'm healthy. So this sickness must be a spiritual attack. Oh man, I've seen this happen so many times. the danger of these types of superstitious presumptions is that it robs individuals of the work to understand the variables that impact their very real lived experiences, which will ultimately negatively influence their ability to navigate and progress through life in any type of way that is healthy from a holistic perspective. If you're convinced that it is indeed a spiritual attack, you're likely not going to consult a health professional. And early diagnosis is often critical for more fatal conditions. But if you've already programmed yourself to defer to the presumption anytime you're having an experience, this must be God, this must be the devil, this must be a spiritual attack, you know, then you're going to assume that your assumption is correct, you know, and you'll typically, because here it is, that doctor don't know nothing about the things of the spirit. That doctor ain't gonna even be able to find nothing. And that might be the case too, because there are a lot of hypochondriacs in charismatic churches, which is a part of how, which is part of how some of those churches grow. They attract a lot of hypochondriac people. So those people are always going to be filling up the altars. They always feel like something's wrong with them. They always need deliverance. And I'm talking more so of the behavior type, not the diagnosis. But people who do not understand phenomena such as social hysteria or the placebo effect, they're going to have a difficult time recognizing when they're being subjected to or even orchestrating such environments. And this is truly sad to me because many churches, especially the more experimental and exploratory charismatic branches, have done a phenomenal job of creating environments and experiences that are highly conducive for psychosocial research and development. And like I'm not being funny there. You know what I'm saying? Like there could be some jokes there. There could be some jokes there, but I'm not being funny there. Honestly, I'd be really disappointed if we never get that day where psychologists, neurologists, and sociologists can spend about a good 2 to 3 years studying the social experiences of some of those more woo churches, like the ones that spend hours and just floating around in the church and stuff, and the ones that run around and because there's all different types, like the ones that think they're seeing glitter and angel dust and shit. Pick some from all those different types and send some teams to like study these people before, after, and during these experiences. Let's track this. I'm talking about real study, because I now honestly, this is just me kind of nerding out here. These are things that I am legitimately interested in, and I think the data from studying humans during these experiences will fill in a few of our blind spots about the human experience and how our own expectations significantly have an impact on our experiences, leading to biological or rather chemical changes in the participants, which it is fascinating. Like I feel sorry for church folk and non-church folk alike, because there are a lot of fascinating things that I've discovered about human capacity, by going back and studying what was actually happening during those experiences. And then, of course, it. My hypothesis is that while what's happening in church experiences is very similar to what happens to us at concerts and things of that nature, it is also, I think it's also highly, I think it'll be different, significantly different, because of the expectations that we take into religious moments, of something else happening. The expectation at the concert is this is going to be fucking good. But the expectation at the religious experience is the magical sky pip is going to come down and visit us. That's some psychedelic shit. And so anyway, but there are so many experiences in these churches that get called God, Jesus, the devil, or the spirit, that all have natural origins and implications. Spirituality, as practiced by most, seems to be pretending to know things that you're not actually trying to know. Spirituality provides the excuses while science provides the reason. I've been fascinated with learning the science behind these experiences, and not just to debunk the bullshit, but also to better understand our humanity. Superstitious approaches to healing, deliverance, or even experience can create a disconnect between individuals and the true understanding of their health and capacity. By prioritizing emotions and presumptions over evidence and inquiry, people risk their well being and hinder personal growth in ways that are profoundly unfortunate. Embracing scientific understanding does not negate our experiences, it enriches them, providing a more comprehensive view of health and wholeness that includes the physical, the psychological, and the social. Understanding the natural causes behind our experiences empowers us to make informed decisions and seek appropriate interventions. It encourages a society where critical thinking and compassion coexist, leading to better outcomes for individuals and communities alike. And if you know anything about your boy, that's what you're going to hear when you come to this channel. We're always going to talk about community. Well, listen, that's all I have for now. I've got to get into a meeting in the next 15 minutes. So if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining, connecting, or supporting this community, content, or channel in any way that makes sense for you. Make sure to share this video with somebody that you love, somebody that you value, and bring a little value to their lives. And don't forget to check out the products, because we have merch, we have books, and we just have a growing arsenal of useful and helpful resources. And if you haven't joined our Discord yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. That's where community is happening at. Get in there. And of course, let us know where you're watching from, because we're really interested in building communities in local hubs. So we have to know where everybody is. That sounds a little stalkerish, but I hope you know what I meant. All right. I love y'all. I got to get out of here. Listen, until next time, keep rising, stay progressive. And if you can, only if you can, stay beautiful. I'll holler at you.